Robert Dudley was born in the west of England, on June 24, 1532. His father was John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, and his mother was Jane Guilford, the daughter of Sir Edward Guilford, who had taken John in as his ward upon his father's execution. Together John and Jane had a remarkably happy marriage, and together they had 13 children. Robert was the fifth son. Of the 13 children, sadly 5 died in childhood, which was not unusual for the era. Robert would first come into contact with Lady Elizabeth during their childhoods, possibly as a result of a mutual tutor, Roger Ascham. Robert married Amy Robsart, with whom he wed in the presence of the then King, Edward. He married again, 18 years after his first wife died, Lettice Knollys, with whom he had a son, Robert Dudley. Lettice would outlive Robert, and their only child, who died aged just 3 years. There was one other child, born from a relationship with Lady Douglas Sheffield, a young widow. A boy child, named Robert Dudley, that Dudley himself raised in his own household, and that of his close friends. Although Dudley acknowledged the child as his own blood, he could not but concede his illegitimacy. Robert's education was of a very high standard as a noble's son, but it was also noted that he was not only a very bright student, but had a particular aptitude for writing and languages. Unfortunately, Robert himself preferred mathematics, much to his tutor's disappointment. Robert Dudley's family downfall meant he had to struggle to reach any kind of status within the royal court. Ingratiating himself with Philip II of Spain, and fighting at the Battle of San Quentin, saw him elevated back into favor within the royal court. Involving himself domestically, as well as in foreign politics, next to Cecil and Walsingham, Dudley worked hard to prove his worth. Politically speaking, Robert Dudley, together with Lord Burleigh, became the two most powerful men in the realm, both working hand in glove with their queen. Although these two powerful men would work closely together, Burleigh would see to it that Dudley and Elizabeth I were not to wed each other. A marriage between them would not be accepted by many of the nobles of the day. Robert Dudley and Amy were married for 10 years when she met with an accident, breaking her neck after a fall down a short flight of stairs. Rumors abounded that Robert was responsible, although he was not present in the household at her death. It was commonly thought Dudley would marry Elizabeth, but there were many that felt the marriage was not a wise one, and Elizabeth heard their counsel. For 18 years, Robert held on to the hope that Elizabeth would agree to marry him. For as many years as Elizabeth knew Dudley, he would always be her favorite. As such, through the years, Robert's life would come under threat, so much so that he took to wearing a light coat of mail under his clothing. Robert Dudley died suddenly. In the July of 1588, Queen Elizabeth appointed him Lieutenant and Captain General of the Queen's armies and companies, ahead of the Spanish Armada nearing the coast of England. After Elizabeth's famous speech to her troops, and the defeat of the Armada, Dudley had spent much time in the Queen's presence. Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester's health, had been troublesome for some time. Deciding to take the baths in Derbyshire, at Buxton, en route he died, on September 4, 1588, at Cornbury Park near Oxford. Upon hearing the news, the Queen, Elizabeth, was deeply distraught, taking to her rooms until several days later, when Lord Burleigh had her door broken down. Robert Dudley's remains were laid to rest at Beauchamp Chapel of the Collegiate Church of St. Mary, in Warwick, alongside that of his little son.